Okay, well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to put this into speaker mode. There we go. So I'm really grateful for everyone to be joining us again today. This call is being recorded. It's a follow-on from last week's call, where we had Mike DiMuccio as a guest speaker talking to us about some of the specifics of what he did last month in the month of November to really create some excitement and some energy, but critically, some results in the business in Canada. We saw, as a reminder, a 24% increase in sales activity in the USA and a 66% increase in sales activity in Canada. And that wasn't by accident, it was by design. And so we had a great call last week talking about what Mike and particularly those groups that he was working very closely with did to facilitate that. But we want to carry that on a little bit further today. What we want to do today is talk about what we can do individually to make sure that that happens in our business. We discussed that as an overview last week. We want to get into some more of the specifics as we prepare for really launching our businesses as soon as possible. And now some people might call that a relaunch. Others might be launching for the first time or launching a new wave. I like that phrase that Mike used of launching a new wave of excitement. And the reality is, whether the business is new or mature in any industry, there is always going to be this cycle, this ebb and flow that a business will experience. I don't think I've ever seen a company that has gone like that for 40 years straight. If they did, my goodness, they would be on the front cover of every business magazine out there. But we just don't see that. In fact, research showed from some studies that were done in the Netherlands, the average lifespan of a business, regardless of industry, was 11 and a half years. Isn't that frightening? 11 and a half years, the average lifespan of a business, which means if you take any of the Fortune 500 companies from the 80s, maybe even the 90s, you'll find that at least half of them won't even be in existence anymore. You could do that as your own research, and you'll find that to be true. So Nikken has been going for 41 years, but as with any established business, it's going to have this ebb and flow. So there is always going to be a need for us when we get that little little dip in the curve, so to speak, to create, because it's our responsibility to do that, isn't it? To create that energy that creates the lift again and brings it back up, so that we can continue to have this flow, but hopefully in an upwards direction. But that falls upon our shoulders. I saw a little comic, a little cartoon earlier this afternoon, where a little character was carrying a bottle of happiness, and the other character said, "I've been looking all over the place for that. Where did you find it?" And he said, "I made it." And I really liked that. He made the happiness, and we know if we want to be happy, it's our responsibility to create that emotion within us. We can't be victim to our circumstances or our surroundings in order to make sure that that emotion is experienced in our lives. And likewise with our business, in order for it to get that energy invested back in, it's our responsibility as business leaders to create it. So what we want to talk about today is what are some of the things that we should be doing right now to create that energy over the first quarter specifically of 2017. So Mike, I'm going to pin your line here. So talk to us a little bit about this process of creating this energy. There are some specifics that you were talking about last week that we need to do as business leaders to make that happen. And I want to preface this in advance. We're going to host a call on Thursday, and we'll send out the invites to those that put their name forward. As we said last week, we're not going to invite certain people to join us as leaders here to launch their town, their city, their meeting, their business. We want volunteers. For those that listen to this message and say, I can do what Mike is talking about, then let us know, and we're going to have a specific planning strategy call on Thursday, which is just a couple of days away, where we're going to go through some of the details and start to map out the plan of action in order to facilitate that. So put your names forward if, and only if, what you hear today feels like this is something you can do. Because I emphasize the if, because the likes of Mike, myself, Dennis and Ruth Williams, Dave Johnson, and a lot of other leaders are going to be touring the markets to support these events and to support you in this launch process. So we want to make sure as we get out there to support that, that you're 100% committed to the whole process of what we're talking about today. So Mike, in order to get this energy, you talked last week about there being not just a meeting, but kind of a process involved here. Let's elaborate on that for just a second.
Okay, let me just build a little context about that, because we're going to nail it down to what the individual is going to be doing from a end in mind backwards. But I want to give some context to that, because you're not doing this alone.
Yeah.
There's a group of us that will coordinate a campaign. It is a full-scale campaign across the region for those people who participate. So those will be the prime directives, the spots that we focus on. But it's not an event. It's an outcome. And it's based on the first quarter as the lead quarter for the year 2017. The outcome for the year 2017 is to see the Nikken business, Nikken corporate, the Nikken business expand its base of consultants, not just its customer base, which 2016 you could pretty well say was all about us acquiring the skills and the mindset to become savvy at attracting customers and handling customers in this new model. And so that was our 2016 campaigning and effort. If we look back on that and say, yeah, I guess that's really what we've done, and we've done really well, and now people are very comfortable with that. And it's something that has given them a renewed sense of confidence and comfort in their Nikken business. We want to now expand what you now are able to do and duplicate what you're able to do through others. So we've got to attract others. That means we have to relanguage what we're presenting, how we're presenting, and make it relevant. And we've got some great ideas that we're working on right now, brainstorming this, that we're going to package it so that you're all going to have, for instance, a flyer that will be branded, that you can use for the campaigning effort over the next quarter. But let's look at this in terms of the quarter. So the first quarter is to really launch your business within the context of a happening, a Nikken happening. And this Nikken happening is not just the January month, it's the quarter. And it's going to culminate with a rewards and recognition, a monumental rewards and recognition session in Orlando. So you've got to be thinking April, you've got to be thinking attendance in April. So that's the end game for the first quarter. That's where we all come together and pat everybody on the back for a job well done. So I want to give you the picture of how this all comes together. So in April, we're all there, we're recognizing amazing new rank advancements on stage, more than we've seen in a decade. It's all going to be coming across stage, new people, new ranks, and so forth. So that's all as a result of us making the decision to make this happen, because it doesn't happen without anybody making a decision. You know, Nikken says, oh, we're going to open up a country. Well, they just sit there, wait until somebody actually opens up the country. The company doesn't do it. It's entirely up to us or the individual who decides to take it upon themselves to launch that country. Well, we're now in the cycle, the new cycle, a new year, a new cycle, a new compensation plan, a new attitude. We now have the benefit of having the experience of creating retail customers. So we're armed with a beautiful business model that we can share with other people. So we're now moving into this new wave to create this new splash. So the idea then is it's a succession of events that's going to sweep the nations. And you're going to be part of that. So you're going to benefit. I want to really help you understand how important the individual effort is to the collective. Many of you have seen this model, and I want to repeat it because it's worth repeating it. If we were to stand around a swimming pool and we individually threw stones into the water at random, different size stones and at random, what would create is a lot of splashing and a lot of waves crashing. And for the person standing on the diving board looking at the surface of the water, it wouldn't look like anything. It'd just be like white noise. And so we wouldn't be able to stand out. We wouldn't be able to create an impression where people are saying, hey, what's going on at Nikken, and draw more. You know, I want to also point out, Ben, that 66% increase in volume in Canada was over 25% more than I accounted for. So there was volume that I couldn't see that came out of the woodwork that was a consequence of what I'm talking about right now. This effect, this lateral effect that takes place without our purview. It's just, it happens because it somehow influences on a cosmic level, let's say, the people who are picking up on the vibe.
Yeah.
So what happens is when we drop these pebbles in a pond with coordination, in a coordinated way, what you create is a wave front, a wave form. And now that has impact and leaves impressions on the psyche and the mindset of people and influences the population as a whole. So your individual stone is going to be part of a collective experience that creates a wave. That wave will then come back to you. Because when the wave goes out and hits the edge of the pool, what does it do? It comes back. And so in the second round, which will be in February, and in the third round, which will be in March, those waves will be building and building. And so you're going to experience a building of events, a building of momentum, a building of excitement, enthusiasm, which precedes all of that, by the way, by sheer momentum of the energy that we're applying into the system. And so that's what we all get the benefit of being part of a collective campaign. If I was just sitting here by myself, doing this all by myself, it's really hard to lift this off the ground. But when I know I'm part of an effort that's international even, it makes the job of lifting that much easier.
Yeah.
And much more fun and much more exciting. And it's just because we decided to do it. We don't have to do this. We just choose to. The whole concept of self-care and wellness is about making a choice. Active wellness is about choosing, and we're choosing to be part of this next cycle, this next wave, and to create it. So that's Yeah, no, I was going to say that this cosmic effect that you talked about, the knock-on effect where all boats start to rise with the tide, so to speak. That in marketing terms, they've got a phrase for that. It's called the halo effect. Ah, good. Yes,
yeah.
I wanted to know. Right.
So there is a recognized impact with certain marketing activities where there is the direct effect from the activity, and then there is the halo effect where it has a knock-on effect that is immeasurable on other aspects of the business activity. And we saw that effect in abundance, I think, in Canada. But I think what you're saying there is really important, that whether we've got events in Brighton or in London in England or in Toronto in Canada or in Texas or in California or New York, wherever those events may be, when we're doing that together, there is a collective halo effect, especially when we share the activity online, that helps us all to feel connected and helps all boats to rise with the tide. And I think that's really important.
So there'll be a common theme, a common brand, a common thread. We will be hashtagging the same hashtag for all of our events, so that we will actually see each other's events and share each other's events and be cognizant of when that next event is, where that next event is. Put that message out, because you don't know who you're going to have in England. I don't know. I might have somebody who wants to go to a meeting in Southern California. I don't know until we get this started, but I know I'm going to have that to point people to. Yeah. And so this cross-pollination, this halo effect is going to create a huge wave. I don't think it's ever been done in Nikken like this. I don't think it's ever been done. So for me, this is a first, and it's an exciting thing to even attempt.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And what I would like to emphasize as well is, some of these meetings, they had various levels of attendees as well, correct? So talk to us about some of the realities, because there might be some people saying, I want to be a part of this, but maybe my contribution might feel too small or not significant enough to truly participate. What would you say to someone that's maybe feeling that way, that, oh, this sounds exciting, but I'm no Mike DiMuccio, I'm no Maggie.
Well, if any of you actually went to my Facebook page and saw some of the events, and you saw some of the attendance, I had, think in Montreal, one event we had 18 people. We had a smaller event somewhere else, but the point was, if you went and saw that Facebook post, you would not know that. You wouldn't pick that up, and if you did, it wouldn't even faze you, because you're catching the energy. Yeah. And it's the energy that you're able to create. I can create a lot more energy in a smaller and contained environment than a very large generic environment. So small and effective is very effective in the social media world.
Yeah. So what we're saying here is you got an event in January, an event in February, an event in March. The size of attendance at these 3 events is not what matters most. It's the process, the experience, and the integration, the collaboration, isn't it?
It's the building for it. It's all the buildup for it. I know that when I launched my business in January 92, I launched with a calendar in place for the month of January. Yeah. At that point in time, I didn't think 3 months out. Yeah. I eventually learned quickly you need to be thinking 3 months out, because the end of January came upon us very quickly, and we hadn't yet published a calendar for February. But we did publish it 1 month at a time, so we had people at least know where the events were going to take place. But it was a very aggressive calendar of events. Yeah. I know that in the days that we're living in today, it's not as efficient to go that route. You might have one main event for the month, but a whole lot of series of small events, coffee shop events, in-home events, online events to start building the volume for that main event, for that, where you're going to have a keynote speaker or something to plug into. But before we even get to that, before we even get to the runway of those events, I want to step out and say, okay, now let's look at the individual's contribution for the quarter. Yeah. You need to personalize this, guys. You need to make a decision about where your business is going to be at in the next quarter, the first quarter of January. However, I want to give you a caveat, because this came up on my call last night. You're not evaluating the new Nikken based on the old Nikken. So if you took so long to achieve silver, or so long to achieve gold, or so long to achieve executive, whatever, or you're looking at the current conditions and saying, well, it's been a bit of a struggle, that was because you were working with an old model in a new economy. But when you put the new engine under the hood in the new economy, this car is going to go a heck of a lot faster than you've experienced. And so your expectations need to be adjusted accordingly. Yeah. And so I'm going to suggest out loud that those of you who want to play in this particular agenda, set a goal for creating the equivalent of a platinum business in the next quarter. I have reason to believe that there's going to be all kinds of reasons why you're going to want to do that, and going to be supported in doing that, and going to be highly recognized for having done so. And it's definitely worthy of your agenda, your time, to set that kind of goal. Even if it scares you, good. Even if it's something you've never imagined, good. We're not doing what we've done before. We're going to create something new and exciting and bold, so that we can wake up in the morning like I'm waking up in the morning, supercharged, excited, can't wait to talk to somebody and share what's going on. So that's the end game for your personal agenda in this quarter of 2017. So that's a 30,000 a month business volume that you're adding to or building to in your current situation, given we're about to drop a new engine in the car. Okay, just remember that. And this engine, if you think about old engines and new engines, the old engines are the muscle cars, back in the day, they made a lot of noise and they talked a lot, and, they had low RPM, and they just, that was the nature of the beast at that time. Yeah. It's kind of like old MLM, the big guys at the front of the stage with the big mouths and the big personalities. That was old MLM. The new MLM model is a high-performance engine. It has more gears to it. It has a higher RPM, and it's quieter. Yeah. So that's the new model, and that's the engine that's being dropped into our car. So think in those terms as we now propel forward. So now working backwards, what is the agenda? What is the event schedule and the agenda that you can build, knowing that, number one, you've got one date already booked in your calendar, and that's April in Orlando. The date on that, Ben?
27th to 30th of April.
Okay, so end of April. Yeah. So there's the first event that goes in the calendar. Now you've got March, February, and January. Pick some dates. And I suggest when you send in your request to us, give us a couple of options, because we're going to have to calendar this in a way that makes sense physically for us to be able to actually get to these locations and not kill ourselves crisscrossing the country. So Give us a couple of options as to what you might like to see as an event. Please understand that weekends are prime. I know that. And those prime dates are going to be specially calculated for personal agendas as well as business agendas. But also keep weekdays open, because people still do business during the week, and we expect to have to do that. So give us those options for building your events calendar, a main event in each month, and then you can start working backwards from there. What are the events that I need to start looking at? And I'm suggesting you build an events calendar before you think about who you're going to put in those events. There's an old movie, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you dig the trench now, when the rain comes, you'll have somewhere to put the people. And right now you're probably thinking, well, what people are we talking about here? We will get to that. We will help the planning and support of how to actually reach out and get some people coming to your campaigns. We're working on that right now through brainstorming. And if you've got some ideas, by the way, there's some of you out there who are really brilliant with internet and you're very good at savvy stuff like that. We want to showcase your talents and give us some instruction on how we can increase the flow of traffic into our campaign. So any questions so far, Ben?
Yeah, no, I would just kind of reiterate a couple of points here. That you said is each month is going to have a specific event that you will host locally. And again, we're going to coordinate this so we can get key leaders coming to these events to provide the support that you need. So that's really important that you know the planning, the implementation is done collectively for these local events that you'll host. But also, Mike, you emphasized that you might do a little bit of activity beforehand, and we would encourage this, of course. It might be coffee shop meetings, it might be in-home meetings, and your own monthly meeting might be in your home if you can accommodate that, if it's a 15 or 20 kind of size group. But there is some activity to do in advance to get those seats filled. That, again, you put the date in the diary, dig the trench, build it, and then they will come. You've got to have the confidence of that process. I think is really important. So understand that the event for each month will be preceded by making phone calls, sending out invitations, inviting people to come along, doing some one-on-ones, maybe doing some ABCs, having that group activity beforehand to make sure that we fill those seats for those events, to make sure that we really have a meaningful experience.
And of course, if you know that you've got this events calendar, then going into your first conversations with your early prospects, what are you going to be sharing with them? You're going to be sharing with them the agenda that they can be a part of. So it creates a sense of urgency. It creates a sense of purpose. And we're working on packaging this. We're going to come out with a flyer that is you're going to love this flyer, and it's going to speak bundles for what it is that you're asking people to evaluate. Okay? Yeah. So it's going to be a tool that you can leverage. And then you can add your event schedule into it.
Let me add one point as well. Often the question of what do I invite people? What am I inviting them to when they're coming to this meeting? Yeah, and a lot of people in Nikken are comfortable talking about the product, but often feel a little bit of nervousness about talking about the business. And I should emphasize that I've seen that not just in Nikken, but in every network marketing company that I've worked with in the past. Yeah, there is always a little bit more vulnerability or nervousness around that. Here's what I would remind you of, that there's the golden opportunity. I heard this phrase a while back. I really like the phrase, right? But we've got something unique here. One of the most popular, exciting products of a network marketing business is what I have heard termed a legacy position. A legacy position is being at the front end of that new wave of energy and excitement and growth of a business. When you're at the front end of that legacy spot is something that is very compelling because it makes you very affluent in our business. Yeah. Now, what we're offering here in this new wave of business growth, again, recognizing the ebb and flow. See, because in some MLMs where they don't have the lifespan, the legacy that we have, because they don't have the legitimacy, perhaps in their business or in their product range, they will have a single wave. It'll go like that. Yeah, and that's it, which is often where you hear the term ride the wave. Get in at the front, ride the wave, because there's only one. But in Nikken, there are multiple waves that come. And we are in charge and in control of when they come and how big we want them to be. So if you can create this new wave, then what you're offering people at these meetings is the chance to be in a legacy position in a new wave of business growth. Now, this is huge. What that gives you now is a reason for people to come and explore, because you've got a new product, you've got a new compensation plan, and you've got a new wave of energy being created, and you've got a rhythm of events throughout the year where people can connect and be a part of it. And you can say, come in now, and you will see this wave develop over these next few months. And you can be a part of this now, enjoy this legacy spot, because this is the real opportunity, I think, of a lifetime that you can get people in with excitement for. So utilize that opportunity in the prospecting and the recruiting message, that this is a legacy opportunity, a legacy position, to be a part of a new wave of excitement in a mature and growing business.
Yeah,
this is huge.
Beautiful. This is huge. These are marketing thoughts. Write them down. I'm writing them down.
Yeah.
Because we're going to package this. For instance, right now, I've been toying with some ideas this morning, but in the music biz, when somebody comes through, they release an album, and it's whoever it is, Celine Dion. Well, that's kind of old school, but whatever it is, they come through and they always have a tour that follows that album. So we're thinking in those terms, the Nikken the Active Wellness Tour. So thoughts that I'm throwing: a Nikken business launch, Active Wellness Tour. So we're going to package that so you can see that it's not just an event; it is actually a campaign.
Yeah.
And so you're all going to be plugging into something that's a wave that sweeps us. It's going to sweep us first. We're going to be swept into this wave, and that's going to heighten our enthusiasm, excitement for what it is that we're doing, which is then going to start to spread out and create that second wave and then that third wave. And come April, we're going to be sitting back thinking, let's do this again. This was too cool. Yeah,
exactly. And I love that phrase that you used, Mike, of an active wellness tour. And I love that because, as I think of my team here in the UK or in France, that can sometimes feel a little bit removed from the lion's share of the business, which is in North America or Mexico or in Latin America. We can host events that are a part of this active wellness tour that is taking place all over the world. And you can have an event in the south of England that is a part of this active wellness tour, where there are other events taking place simultaneously all across the United States and Canada, and we're all a part of that same movement. And you can use that again in your message, that come along, legacy position. We've got an active wellness tour that's taking place all around the world. This is an event amongst many that are taking place with a team where we're all working together to create a huge wave of excitement. And you can be a part of this right now. And we've got another event coming up, which you can be a part of. Come in quickly, because you've got that legacy spot that will pass you by. And it creates a sense of urgency, a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense of teamwork, all of the stuff that people want to hear as they are building a business. They get to experience in this whole active wellness tour that we're putting together here. So I think that's really good.
Wow. Okay. So if you're picking up on this, you're starting to understand how this is going to work, how people are going to feel like there's something going that they want to at least come and kick the tires and check out. So what we will do is we're going to invite you to send an email, first of all, to Dave Johnson's office. And I forget the email address that we're supposed to send it to.
Oh, let me pull it up really quickly.
So let us know that you really want to be, and if you've got a couple of dates in mind over the next quarter, January, February, March, please throw them out there. These time slots are precious, and we want to be able to choreograph as much of that as we can and support as much of that as we can. But the commitment that you're making as an individual is really the commitment to execute a 90-day action plan. That's it. And it's not anything that's out of the ordinary. It's not anything that you wouldn't be expected to do if you were hired by a company to head up their marketing division or head up their new sales department or whatever. You would be expected to put together a, quote, business plan. Well, I know a lot of us are not necessarily professionals at doing that, but this sounds a lot to me like a business plan, and we can all have a part in it and run parallel to it, but be part of the whole thing. It's kind of like Macy's does a cross USA campaign for Christmas. Each individual Macy's store has to align itself to that US campaign. And so they're going to look the same, they're going to feel the same, and that store is going to do what that store does. And if it's in New York City, well, that's one thing. If it's in, a smaller town, that's another thing. You don't expect the same results, but you do expect the same percentage in terms of results. So that's what we're going to all benefit from, is each of us are going to get a real good boost in our business as a result of this. And more importantly, and most importantly, we're going to create a new story for Nikken. This is going to be another era for Nikken. There were eras in Nikken. I actually participated in more than one launch in Nikken. When I joined Nikken, they were at the end of a $40 million a year business run in North America. They had grown to 40 million, and it took them several years to get to that point, but they were flatlining. And then I enrolled in Nikken, and then we went through another phase. And then that started to flatline, and then came the third wave, which was really the crescendo of the two before it. And then we rode that wave for 15 years, if not more. So we are now at the tail end of that wave and at the beginning of the next one. And by the way, interesting, each wave in succession was larger than the previous.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Good points. As we draw to a close, I've put the address there in the chat. For those that are listening on the phone, it's Diana, D-I-A-N-A, at magneticleaders.com. If you want to host the events in your area, like we said, January, February, March, with the culmination, the celebration experience being in Orlando in April, which is just perfectly timed for this, then please email Diana at magneticleaders.com. Confirm your commitment there. We will then send out an invitation. You'll need to do that soon, because we're going to send out an invitation to participate in a strategic planning meeting that will take place on Thursday, again via Zoom. It'll be done at a time frame that will accommodate the European teams as well as the North American teams. So let's make sure that happens. Confirm your commitment. Let's plan this out together, and we'll coordinate a schedule together where everyone can get the maximum amount of support and help in truly making a difference and leaving a legacy.
One big point regarding the Salt Lake City event. I'm going to be there, Ben. I know you're going to be there. Dave's going to be there. I believe Dennis and Ruth are. I haven't confirmed that, but essentially we're going to be there. So if you think in terms of January being the first phase, the first round of the wave, if you can gather up a few people who you feel are going to go the distance with you on this, I would suggest that you get them to Salt Lake City so that we can meet them personally and integrate them into this plan so that they feel like they're part of the plan going into the second and third month rather than being an outsider looking in. Yeah, absolutely. Because what you've got there is a chance for us to have tailored messages to your audience, one-on-ones, small group meetings, all of that stuff to really help integrate and bring people in. So a great chance to bring people to this event, make that one count, and that's a good way to kind of kickstart things off if you haven't had events preceding that. So excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think, again, Mike, thank you for being with us. This has been a hugely instructive and insightful call. It's being recorded. We will share it again on the Royal Alliance website and on the Magnetic Leaders site as well for those that have missed it. Please share it with anyone that you feel wasn't on the call that should have a listen to this so that they can be a part of this and not miss out. What we've got ahead of us is something phenomenal, and we're going to lead the way and make that next wave really something to inspire people. So thank you all very much, and we'll speak to you again real soon. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.